Okay, so we are here with author Wendy Million and her book Mismatched, which I see Meredith has right behind her as well. This was our summer book club read, and we couldn't have asked for a more fun summer read for sure. I read it on planes, in cars, and on beaches. So my book went everywhere with me this summer. Why don't we start by Wendy, you telling us a little bit about how you came up with this whole idea? Do you want to give a quick synopsis?
Sure. So it's about a woman named Taylor who goes to a matchmaking service. It's really exclusive and super expensive. And she's hoping to finally meet the right person for her. But after she's paid all that money, she's actually matched with an ex-boyfriend, the one she almost married. So it's obviously a huge disappointment for her and kicks off the whole plot of the story. So and the idea for it actually came out of a short story prompt. So there was a prompt that was like, imagine a woman goes to I think it was internet dating service and gets matched with like an ex-boyfriend. And I was like, well, how can I make this really terrible for her? so, so lots of money and the worst guy she could have possibly been matched with. So yeah.
And was the matchmaking service based on any real ones, or was that completely fabricated? Because that was just like an evil matchmaking place.
Yeah, it was mostly fabricated, I would say. Like it was kind of so I did internet dating back when it like the first sort of thing started, and there was Plenty of Fish and all those other ones out there. And I always kind of, I don't know, sometimes it felt a little bit, the whole process felt a bit strange, right? So just kind of jumping off some of those aspects and things that I always found kind of odd and putting them into the book. So yeah.
I'm always curious when we speak to the authors, are any of the characters, when you're writing this, are any of the characters based on like, is the female in it based on partially your life at all, or is it complete fiction?
So I would say that Simon is a little bit based on my current husband. Just that indecision and uncertainty about the whole marriage thing and the initial breakup. Like my husband and I very happily married, been happily married for a long time now, but the journey to get married was fraught with difficulty. So and so Simon and his like uncertainty and that like having other people put information in his head that made him question it was very much from my own life. So I'm always like, when I read reviews and they're like, this is so unrealistic, I'm like, dude, that actually happened to me. So I totally understand that whole Simon aspect of it. So
And has your husband read the book? And what does he think about the Simon character?
he has not read it.
Really?
he's,
Wow.
he's read some of my other ones, but he hasn't read this one. So I have a romantic suspense series that he really enjoyed reading. He likes that like mystery suspense aspect. So that was more his jam than the rom-com style.
I love it.
Yeah.
Mary, did you have any questions for Wendy?
I don't know. Like, well, I always wonder when we speak to authors, how long did it take to write the book from the moment you had like that prompt until like you finished it?
So Mismatched was actually fairly quick write for me because I started it in February of 2020, and in March of 2020 the pandemic hit. So everything in the world kind of shut down. So it was I had lots of time to dedicate to writing to it. So it probably took me about 4 months to write it, which is pretty quick.
Really quick.
Yeah. So it was, yeah, and it was a nice, fun read to write for me as well, because it was a lot lighter and lighthearted, at least to start with, and so it was a nice pick me up from everything else that was going on at the time. So it was a nice escape.
And I know that you've previously published, so like where in line does this book fall? Which number is this one for you?
Um, so I have a 3-book romantic suspense series. That was the first thing that I ever had published. And then Wattpad Books, which is what published Mismatched, also published a book called When Stars Fall, and it's a second chance romance as well, but it's like a celebrity romance. So I have that one, and then I've self-published some books too under W Million. So that's like and it's a Royals, really super tropey Royals series. So
Oh,
that's
cool.
and there's 4 books in that. So this one kind of, it was written before all of my Royals books, but because traditional publishing actually moves a lot slower, it came out after all of my Royals books were done. So
Now, when you write a second chance rom-com, do you find it challenging to find like the reason why they broke up, but make the person not like hateable? You know, like as a reader, you're not saying, "Oh no, don't go back with him," because you're like, you know what, it's justifiable. So is it hard to write those justifiable breakups and to make them redeemable?
yeah, for sure. And I think part of that is because I find it like acceptable and redeemable, but there are lots of people out there who are not going to, are going to be like, that's completely unacceptable that he had any sort of uncertainty at any point. And so I think, yeah, I think it's a tightrope to walk in a lot of ways, to try and find something that feels authentic and real and something that they have to overcome, but at the same time not be something that you're like, there's no way that they could ever overcome this. So yeah,
I love that. That's a great question. I like that a lot. So what are you working on now? Do you have anything else in the pipeline? Will there be a part 2 where we get to hear about their happy little trip as a couple? Is there any more to this, or we're done with this one and we move on to a whole new topic?
So we're pretty much done with Mismatched. I do have bonus chapters which are available on my website. One's like them getting married, and the other one's like a 5-year glimpse into the future. So if you sign up for my newsletter, then you can read a little bit more of Taylor and Simon. But I'm not 100% sure what's happening with Wattpad books after this. I do have one that I've written that it's called Before 30, and it's about a woman who's about to turn 30, and she's always been kind of flighty and free, and she's not sure what she wants to do with her life. So she decides she's going to go on this like last big adventure before she turns 30 and becomes like serious. And so she ends up booking a trip across Canada. And the first part of her trip that she goes on, she mistakenly books a mature bus tour, thinking it'll just be people who are older, but it's actually like retired people. And the only other person who's on the bus trip is a doctor from, he was at the DRC, like on a remote sort of doctoring adventure, and is just on this trip. He booked the mature trip on purpose because he didn't want that interaction with anyone else. He just wanted to kind of stick to himself. So it's a little bit of that grumpy sunshine trope, and
I like that.
And hilarity ensues. So yeah.
Yeah, that sounds really fun. I love stories like that.
Yeah.
That's
and
awesome.
It's Canada, so I like that. I like when they're based in Canada.
Yeah, well, I was like, I had just come back when I first started writing it. I had just come back from a trip out to Calgary, and I was like, it'd be really cool if I could somehow integrate like all the various places I've been to in Canada into a story. And so I was like, oh, I can make a character who goes on a trip. And so, yeah.
Nice. We'll look out for that one.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, keep us posted. We can do that as another book club pick down the road.
Oh, that'd be fun.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, I hope that everybody enjoyed this read as much as I did. It was super fun to get into this story. And I can't thank you enough, Wendy, for coming on to actually join in on our discussion. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.